So let's look at in detail now with our understanding about this 1,000-year cycle broken up into two 500-year cycles. Let's look at it. On the left side, at the year 12 of the current era, you have these ascendant light teachings, I'll call them, of the Christ. And then at 512, 500 years later, you've got a breakdown, a decay of what had been established as a fairly rigorous educational and mystical order throughout the West. This begins to break down and secede into the Dark Ages. In the year 1762, at the bottom of our cycle here, approximately this year, it's a religion, Islam, becomes established very clearly in the Mediterranean and Arabia, whose symbol is the crescent moon. And at the left side of the time cycle here, at the transition from this period of recall and breaking down into regeneration at around 1012, Islam encounters the Hindu traditions, and this fusion leads to the mystical Sufis of India, of which Hazrat Inayat Khan, who came to the West in the early 1900s, is an example. In 1215, nearing the ascendancy of the period of spiritual light, we have the signing of the Magna Carta, which recognizes an inherent dignity and freedom of the individual. It's about the same time that the Inca Empire really is taking off in the Andes. 1262 is considered by James J. Walsh the greatest of centuries. There's really a resurgence back in Europe now of education, cathedral building, civic development, all sorts of advancements in our understanding of how to organize ourselves into cities and to distribute knowledge. Now at 1532, over on the right side, this is a beginning of decay. So Martin Luther comes forward and establishes what later becomes Protestantism, because the old order and acceptance of the rule of the Catholic Church is called into question. So you see here this old structures are being broken down, things are being recycled and turned over. And then to maybe emphasize that it is a period of spiritual darkness, in 1558 there are debates on whether or not Native people have souls. And this later influences even the U.S. Constitution about portions of a soul that slaves or Native people may have. In the 1600s, with Descartes, you get the desacralization of matter. Spirit and matter, intellect and matter are two separate things. So you can see the spiritual darkness, the spiritual ignorance, denying the interaction of all things to each other. Now in 1762, sort of paradoxically, this is about the time of the Enlightenment. And this is really a misnomer, because what we have is the ascendancy of science and a sort of extended Greek rationalism that is thought to be really the salvation of the planet. This later gets turned into the ages of progress. At around the bottom of the cycle, with the light beginning back, we do have the American Revolution, the very strong principles related to freedom, the distaste for monarchy, the desire for liberty that's occurring. But in keeping with this as being a dark cycle, there is warfare that's unfortunately used to establish the principles and liberty and freedom. Later through the arc, ascending up through towards the right, this notion of American nobility or primacy begins to manifest itself, where in a kind of spiritual darkness we believe we have a destiny to go ahead and take over the continent and to effectively displace the people who were living here before we came. And still relative darkness as we're coming back up now to the cycle of light. So until we get to late 2011 and into 2012, Still some darkness aspects are hanging around. You can see this manifesting in the world today. Just look around what's going on. So these cycles of time, as we're now talking about 2012 and what's going to happen, the Mayan calendar is a great resource. We see both a major Pachacuti change somewhere between 1993 and 2012. My calibrated time cycle says 2012. This aligns up with the Mayan calendar. It's 500 years after the halfway point between Columbus's and Pizarro's landing. So what's going to happen in 2012, we're not quite sure, but to the Mayans, the Milky Way and the center of the Milky Way, as we observe from Earth, was the world tree. So if you're interested in this, there's additional spiritual light that's supposed to come onto the planet to help inaugurate our transition to a cycle of 500 years of relative spiritual light on the planet. And there are people like Johann Kalimann and John Major Jenkins who have excellent material if you'd like to get more into this. That's all I have for sharing right now. Thanks for listening and watching to my video on Pachacuti.